Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Sorry. So let us begin with Aram.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
My name is Eram Shakil. Um, I have been born and brought up in Saudi Arabia. After completing my schooling from there, uh, I pursued BCom honors and did bachelor's in library science from AMU itself, as I had fear of taking year gap last year, as I didn't get center of my choice for MBA. So I decided to try again this year, and with my good fortune, I'm here. During my bachelor's, I did internships at various places, one as a content writer in IT based company and other as a community influencer in Mentorbox, where I learned about sales and marketing. Also, during my bachelor's, I joined an NGO based in Aligarh, which works for student welfare, and there I held two positions, one as assistant social media marketer and other as assistant program leader, and organized various programs. After all this, I tried to set up my own business of paying guest consultancy, but due to lack of time, knowledge, and mainly data, I paused it for a while. And along with that, my personality is leaned more towards working for my community. I even took an initiative few days back to generate employment for people who beg. Coming on my strength, I'm an active person, a multitasker. I love to learn new things. I'm always in urge to improve myself. Also, my biggest strength I feel is I know myself at what things I'm good at and where I lack. And if I come to my weaknesses, I'm not that good in expressing myself. um, I lack in communication, and sometimes I don't commit to things which is essential for me. For example, I believe everyone should read books, be it fiction, be it non-fiction, self-help, or literature or anything, but I lack there. Coming on my career aspirations, I would like love to work in the field of banking and finance. As going into multiple field, I realized that I'm a commerce girl, and in that, my interest lies more in banking and finance. And along with my career aspiration, I have dreamed to open my NGO one day. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, Yatendra now.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Yatendra.
So my name is Yatindra Chaudhary, and I'm from Aligarh. And I did my schooling from Gagan Public School, Aligarh, in PCM stream. And then I did my graduation from Department of Chemistry, Aligarh Muslim University, in the form of BSc Honors Chemistry. And when I talk about my weakness, so it's sometimes I take time to make decisions, and that will create little bit overthinking on me. And then uh, sometimes that will provide me a little bit of stress. So in the next 2 years, I will be work over it as much as possible. And my strong point is that I'm doing good in the pressure situations, and also I think that I'm good in organizing things. So and also in intense situations, I work well. So these are my strong points. And when I talk about my career aspirations, so these are I want to be a part of a public sector bank or a public sector insurance company like LIC. So these are my career aspirations. This is all about me. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Yatendra. Saba.
Hello,
Hmm.
good morning, everyone. My name is Asaba Khan. I was born and brought up in Aligarh, and I did my schooling from Aligarh Muslim University, and then my bachelor's that is in English, computer applications, also from Aligarh Muslim University. I've also completed 3-year course in enhancing English skills, certified by U.S. Embassy. Coming to my strength, um, I am patient, disciplined, and hardworking. And my weakness could be my self criticizing nature. Like whenever I do something, I got whenever I got fail in doing something, I basically criticize myself, and instead of focusing on what areas I have to work on and appreciating what I have done, I only criticize myself. But I'm working on that. As far as my aspiration is concerned, I want to work as a managerial staff in IT sector. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Asaba. And who is next?
So, Anamika,
Okay, please start. Anamika.
I have been brought up in a, and I have completed my school
Anamika, you are not audible.
I have done the mic is on mute. Maybe there is some network issue.
Uh, Maybe try
So now I am
switch
audible.
off. Ah, now you are audible.
Okay, sir. So I have completed my graduation in commerce from the Aligarh Muslim University. Along with my graduation, I have done several workshops on digital marketing and HR skills, and I have also been a part of the National Cadet Corps, and I have achieved the NCC BNC certificates with alpha grades. And my strengths would be like I am an honest and a social person, which helps me a lot in learning new things from various kinds of people. Like I easily make friends, which help me a lot throughout my life. And my weaknesses is that I lack confidence when it comes to my communication skills. Like I know things, but when it comes to expressing my thoughts, I lack confidence and I became nervous at some points. My future aspiration is I want to get a job in a public sector bank, and that's all about me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, all four of you. So now let us begin with the recap, and then I'll give my feedback on the speakers. Kushagra,
So,
first Kushagra, or
so I am starting. Let me present my screen. So, yesterday, good morning, sir, and my fellow mates. Am I audible?
yes, Vanshika.
Yesterday, we talked about the first school of management or scientific method of management. As in our earlier discussions, we have already talked about how management was always there in ancient times. Now we'll see how it evolved as a discipline during the time of industrial revolution. Mercantile started indulging themselves in the trade that led to the accumulation of wealth, which further led it to the industrial revolution. This is how big industries came into the picture. The bigger industries, manufacturing units, or the factories required particular kind of management, leading to the emergence of first school of management. The first school of management is more oriented towards the production rather than just marketing, as whatever was produced was sold initially as the demand was quite high. So the thought of first school of management focused on the shop floors. As we have talked about the twin concept of management earlier in our classes, that is the efficiency and effectiveness, the first school of management focused mainly on the idea of efficiency. The key focus of the thinkers was to get the maximum output from the given input. We can understand it by the example of coal handling in various industries. Once the coal was transshipped at the particular site, how it is going to be loaded, unloaded, how much worker has to take away in one go, or we can say what kind of equipments or shawls have to be used. All these thoughts started accumulating in the visions of the thinkers. Thus, the first principle, that is, there is one best way of doing every task, and our job as manager is to find out that very best way. Once you find out that very best way, you have to assign the appropriate person that particular job through times and motion studies. For example, mostly you need a strengthful man to do the work field jobs, but for the job of a jockey, you may need a person weighing less. Thirdly, one should ensure that this person gives maximum productivity. How is one going to ensure this? This rule is incentivized through the piece pay rate system, that is compensation as per the output. Lastly, the management have to ensure that right kind of equipments are available for the workers. That is, the thinking part is done by the management, and the doing part is done by the workers. Thus, the first school of management shows the clear division of labor between the managers and the workers. The first school of management, that's why it came to be known as the scientific school of management due to its approach. The key proponent of this theory was Frederick Taylor, who was also called the father of scientific management. This is how this method, this theory, evolved much around the production and output at the minimal cost. But there arises many question, that is it sustainable in the long run, or is it not boring for the workers to do the same job repeatedly again and again every day? Well, maybe that's why some critics call it as anti-labor. That's all from my side. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Vanshika. Now, Kushagra.
Yes, good morning, sir, and good morning, my friends. I'm Kushagra Shoti, and I'm going to present a small recap of concept of management class dated 17th of January 2022. So the class started with the question, with the thought that how mercantilism and Renaissance led to the industrial revolution, how the evolution of management theories and approaches. So the wealth of people led to the uh, setting of larger factories and management oriented towards the production. So the first school of management approach that arose was efficiency. That is to produce more output with a given set of inputs. So it focused on productivity. Then Sir made us understand this by giving the example of coal handling in steel industry, which is a basic process, but we have to study in the scientific manner, like how much coal is to be lifted, in what manner it is to be lifted, by what equipment it is to be lifted, and at what projection it should be thrown that the worker don't get tired. So this principle, this approach gave rise to four principles. The first one of is that to find the best way out to perform the job, and it studied the time and motion studies, which is basically a combination of time work of Taylor and motion work of Frank and Gilbreth. The purpose of which is to increase productivity and improving the production. And the second one, the second principle is that find appropriate person to do a job. For example, if someone is good at maintaining the machines, we should put him there. If someone is good at packaging, we should put him there. If someone is good at running the machines, we should put him there. So we have to find the appropriate person. And the third principle is we have to incentivize them. So basically, there are two wage rate system. The first one is time rate, and second one is piece rate. But this approach followed the piece rate wage system. That is, we incentivize the workers on the basis of output produced, not on time basis. So more output produced, the more compensation they'll get, and less output produced, so the less compensation they'll get. And the fourth principle that arises was the division of work between the management and workers. We have to identify who is going to manage and who is going to perform and implement that task. So management work is basically thinking, and workers need to implement them, the management ideas and thinking. So this approach arose because of the necessity at that time. At that time, demand was very high. There was mass market. So this approach arose, the scientific approach. The, uh, the Taylor is the father of this approach, and he's also known as the father of scientific management. In today's class, we'll study about this approach from the point of view of workers. Like some people said it is anti-labor. Some people said that there's exploitation of worker in this approach, and there is a boring system of so doing the same task repeatedly. So in today's class, we'll study that. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, all six of you. Let me now reflect on the introductions that were done, starting with Aram Shakil. So, Aram, you did your library science also, B.Lib,
Yes, sir.
okay, alongside your BCom, huh? And you have been into many things. So, my only observation is that sometimes when we lead a very responsible life, what matters is prioritizing the things. Hmm? Sometimes what happens is that good becomes the enemy of the best, isn't it? So, like for example, if you feel that you have to find time to read books and you are not able to find time for that, then that means that there is some issue with the priorities that we have set for ourselves. Okay, so do good things, but the best things should not be ignored in the process, isn't it? What really contributes to you have been you have received your primary schooling from Saudi Arabia, huh?
Yes, sir.
But originally you are from which part of India?
Sir, I basically belong to Jharkhand, but I have been settled in Aligarh since 2009.
That is when you shifted to Aligarh for your education,
Yes,
BCom.
sir. Yes, sir. But
Okay. And Yatendra, you want to get into public sector banks, and you have done your BSc chemistry. That is okay. What I was a bit quizzed on one account that you started with your weaknesses first when you were talking about your personality.
Yes. So
So,
actually, when I prepare my intro, so I think about it. So I think
mm,
like first I will tell my weakness and then come with my strong points. So this some pattern.
so
So
as an afterthought, what do you think? We build our career on the basis of our strengths or on the basis of our weaknesses? What
absolutely
matters
strength,
in life? Hmm?
strength, strength, sir.
Is strengths. You know? So,
Yes.
my personal suggestion is that the logical order ought to be. Let us talk about strengths, and you have quite a good number of strengths. Like overall, you appear to be very good in. You said you have been organizing things. You have been active on many fronts. You spoke well. You are overall good in communication, and
Thank you, sir.
you have been doing things in pressure situations. So actually, reverse the order. That would be my suggestion whenever you introduce yourself.
Okay.
Okay. Then Asaba, are you there?
Yes, yes, sir.
You, I see a logical connect in your background as also the aspiration that you have. That is BCA, and now you want to get into IT sector. Hmm?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Asaba, it is actually a strength if we are self-critical. Actually, self deprecation may not be advisable, but being self-critical actually is a good ability, because then we are able to because we are the best judge. All said and done, we are the best judge of ourselves. Nobody else knows us better than we know ourselves, isn't it? So if we
Yes, yes, sir.
keep focusing on the rough edges of our personality, what do we do well, what do we not do well, and why we do not do that well. For example, we may have this habit of delaying things. Hmm?
Yes, sir.
So it is actually good to be self-critical, but at times indulge yourself also. Sometimes pamper yourself, isn't it? That you are
Okay.
good. So that balance, if you are able to have, that's a good ability. And Anamika, I liked
Yes,
your
sir.
presentation also because you have been a very active person, especially somebody who has earned some grades in the NCC. That indicates that you have been active on many fronts, and you described also that you are a social person. Okay, so
Yes, sir.
keep cultivating that because whatever is the uniqueness in us, that has to be cultivated. So
Yes.
maybe at some stage you may aspire for a career in army also, because there are
Yes, sir.
now.
I am going. I am having my SSB in March
Okay,
for the NCC special entry.
very good. Because if you have brought yourself to this level, maybe you can think of those things also.
Yes, sir.
So, Vanshika, you presented the ideas quite comprehensively, covered all the points, except for one minor correction where you talked about the second point, which was related to the selection and training of the right kind of persons, isn't it? Now, time and motion studies we perform for the first point, because how do we find out the best way? We need to find out the exact motions that that have to be performed for that particular task, and the time that we should take for performing a particular motion, isn't it? So, for example, if you have a cotton industry, for example, and your job is to tie the thread. If the cotton is moving on a spindle and you are kept on an alley, you are there on the aisle and you are noting the um, that if the thread breaks, I will tie it. So how should you tie it, and how much time you should take to tie it? All that is the way of finding out the best way of doing the job, isn't it? So once you have found out that best way, now your job is to first select the right kind of person and then train him in the best way that you have learned through the time and motion studies. So that is the minor correction part. And my suggestion to you would be that when next time, it's good that you have prepared your PPT slides, but I have been following a rule uh, which I have evolved for myself for PPT slides. One, ideally, there should be no running text in the slide. There should only be points. That is why we call it PowerPoint, isn't it? So the beauty of a PowerPoint slide is that you have bullet points, isn't it? And my thumb rule on that account is the rule of 5 by 5. Not more than 5 points in a slide, and not more than 5 words in a point, isn't it? Because what happens is that if you have running text in the slides, the listener is more interested in reading what is written on the slides. And in the process, your own communication, gets a bit of, distracted. They are not able to listen you that well when they're reading what you have written, because that's a human tendency that we are more focused on the written words. So if something is written, they tend to read that, and in the process, they may lose out your verbal talk, or they may not pay that much of attention on your verbal talk. Okay, so these are my two observations. And Kushagra, you also did a reasonably good job, and actually your job was simplified because Vanshika has already covered many points through the PowerPoint slides. So, but you did a good job. My only suggestion is that maybe language finesse is something which you uh, can focus on further. That will improve the quality of your delivery. There were some language slips, I would say, not mistakes, language slips here and there. Like, for example, the past form of arise is arose, not arised, isn't it? So just focus on your language finesse, and that will add to your performance. Okay. So now let us start with the critique of the scientific management. I have already hinted that there was a boredom associated with this job. Uh, like, for example, I just now gave you that example of the cotton mill, for example, where you have spindles on which the cotton thread is moving. And actually, it was a real situation. And there were two workers who were kept at two ends of the aisle, and they were just supposed to keep an eye on the moving spindles. And if the thread gets broken at any point of time, they would come to that spindle and then they would tie the thread again. That was their job. Now just imagine somebody doing this job for 35 days, 365 days in a year, 8 hours a day. Will somebody really enjoy that kind of work? So this, I think, was one of the major inherent weakness in the scientific management, that it broke down the jobs into small tasks, and those tasks were so trivial that performing them repeatedly for a human being, maybe a robot would do it, but human beings, they do get bored when there is so much of repetition and monotony in the job. I hope you would agree with me on this.
Yes, sir.
And
Yes, sir.
actually, there was a situation in IBM company where this thing was noted, that how this mindset of dividing the jobs into small meaningful tasks, apparently meaningful tasks, and minutest component of that task, and then assigning that task to the person, how it created problem at the management level. And the situation was like this, that this IBM, which was into producing high quality calculating systems, they had a the chairman of the company, Watson. He was taking a round in the morning, and then he saw that there was a lady who was sitting on a machine, and she was sitting idle, not doing anything. So Watson came to her and asked naturally this obvious question, कि भाई, why you are sitting just like that? And she said, कि I am waiting for the setup man to arrive. And once he sets up the machine, then I will get going. So Watson obviously asked, can't you do it yourself? She said, I can do it. But her next statement was very revealing. She said, I can do it, but I'm not supposed to do it. So Watson naturally said, no, go ahead, if you can do it, why don't you do it? Why waste your time? And that gave him an insight that maybe these proponents of scientific management school have found out that these are two different tasks. That is running the machine and setting up the machine. But is it so that they have to be performed by two different persons? We have broken down the jobs into tasks, but don't we need to reintegrate again? and club, let us say, meaningful tasks together, so that the worker get a feeling of, a holistic feeling of. In fact, this lady would have a greater ownership of her machine if she knows that she has to tend it in the morning, make sure that the proper lubrication is there, and it is in right order and all that, and then she starts her work, rather than waiting for a maintenance man to arrive and see whether it is okay and all, and then only she will get going. So this, I think, is one of the major inherent weakness. Perhaps the exponents of scientific management school pushed this notion of division of labor rather too heavily, and as a result, the jobs were became so trivial. जैसे मैं आपको मिसाल दे रहा था, tying the thread, you know a worker will have greater sense of achievement when he would say that today I produced, let us say, 100 meters of cloth, then a worker who says that today I tied 100 knots. Don't you agree on this?
Yes, sir.
So, some any engineering system, any technology system, which brings so much of monotony in the job, so much of drudgery in the job, and which doesn't use human judgment. That lady knew how to set up the machine, and she was not allowed to do it just because some scientific management expert has suggested that these are two different jobs. They are two different tasks of the same job, and they can be put together. There was another incident in that company only, IBM, which brought this idea uh, forward very strongly. And the situation was like this, that they were working on a calculator, a higher end calculator, but it so happened that the designers had now not finished the design, and there was a lot of pressure from the market to supply that item. So the management decided that enough is enough. Let us not wait too much from the design team to come up with all the nitty gritties. And they gave the half baked design to the workers and said कि you have to perfect the product during the course of the production. Design team is taking too much of time, and we can't wait that long. So the half baked design was given to the workers. And what the management found was that the overall design that emerged, the final product that emerged as a result of workers' involvement in and tinkering, was far better than what those designers could have conceived and originally delivered to them. So, what is the implication of this experience? Again, the same. Human beings who work on with hands. There is a very famous quote. It says, "Hand is the cutting edge of mind." A worker who works with his hands, soils his hands, gets ideas also. And it would be very poor engineering if we are not able to use those insights that workers get because of their years of experience on a particular machine or on a particular operation. And that is why this notion of maximizing the jobs, and the critic said that yes, you have taken it apart, but putting it together is also a very important component. Somebody has to reintegrate. So this was a major critique, that thinking and doing are two separate parts of the same job. And when you put so much of cleavage between these two and say that management will do the thinking part and workers will do the doing part, actually you are not using the full person. So, as per scientific management, you have hired the hand of the person. Suppose if that operation is to be performed by hand, but actually the person's hand, when he comes with his hand, he comes with his mind also. So why do you foreclose this possibility that the worker will have will apply his mind to the job, to do the job, and will upgrade upward the entire process if he is able to use his mind also in the job? So this is the first critique of scientific management. The inside of it, uh, the content of it. Now let us come to the context part of it. How the context was also responsible for, you know, making scientific management less applicable. Now, what is that? You know, scientific management presumed an expanding production base. As I said, its focus was more on production, not on marketing. Suppose you are producing things and they have no markets. What will happen? Will the system remain relevant?
No, sir.
And exactly this is what happened. You know that world witnessed an upheaval, and we had First World War. What was the period?
Then 1914 to 18.
Yes. And afterwards, there was, Great Depression in the economy all over.
Yes.
So, who would buy cars in that situation? And what will happen to the steel industry, the huge facilities which you have set up? Will there be enough takers for those products?
No, sir.
So, this was another reason why scientific management lost its preeminent position. Because the basic premise on which it was standing, and that was an expanding mass market.
Sir, I
That,
have a question.
yes,
Sir, context is not only important for scientific management, but this is applicable for all the system, I guess, because if there is no market, the difference might be in the case that since the scientific management focused only on the production and not on the marketing, I think that was the reason that it tanked.
very true. Very true. Actually, this is the point which we will make in the end when we have covered all the schools. That all these schools are not wrong, they are incomplete.
Yes,
We
sir.
need a holistic understanding. So, for example, we need to understand human feelings. We presumed that a particular image of a man, which was man is an economic man. He will work to maximize his earnings. So the entire scientific management was premised on this idea that man is an economic man. But is man only an economic man? Is man not a social man? And he may compromise some of his earnings to help his fellow beings? Isn't it? So that is what I said, they are not wrong, they are incomplete. And we'll come back to this idea. You have made a very pertinent observation that all these systems, actually, we don't see things the way they are. We see things the way we are. So we are all actually wearing colored glasses, and we
But
look at
sir,
the world. Yes.
while we are studying about scientific school of management, the another thing that I observed was that the roles the roles were divided on the basis of the income disparities in the economy. Like at that point of time, there were clear distinctions between who held a higher position and who were at lower positions. So eventually it was also a reflection of the society and the thoughts that existed in the society at that point of time.
Yes, very true. And the society which was evolving then, people coming from, let us say, rural areas to urban centers, their main motto was to earn. So to that end, scientific management did serve their purpose, and actually earning went up. In fact, yes, it was demonstrated that the earning was up by almost 60%. पाँच मिनट में कहना होगा. So this was something which has to be kept in mind. So Dr. Zareen, if you are there and if we can
Yes.
run this PPT which puts all this thing together, which the ideas which I have explained, that would be great. The slides related to the scientific management, where we have tried to put together everything. This we have already, yes, actually, though. So I think I have already covered it, and now Vanshika and Kushagra have also presented it. So the basic core rule of scientific management was that find out the science of each job. That means the standardized way in which it has to be performed. And for that, you need time and motion studies. And then you have to scientifically select and train the workers. So develop elaborate job descriptions for every job, and then have formal training systems so that every worker is aware of the work standards that he has to adhere to. And then incentives, which we have already discussed, have a piece rate system through which you will train the workers, you will motivate the workers. And then this idea of workers doing different job, managers doing different jobs, and they have to support the work groups so that they do their best. So actually, it's presupposed leaders who are very humane leaders, very considerate people who want to ensure that workers maximize their output and in turn their earnings. So this was the entire premise. Now, next slide, please. Dr. Zareen, can we move on to the next slide?
Sir, I have done that.
Next slide, please, Zareen. Yes. So I think the last point which you have on the slide, this is the core problem of scientific management. That is, it created a unnecessary division between planning and doing. And all the rest of the problems arose because of this only. So yes, I have already talked about the context, how the context changed as a result of World War and then Great Depression. And the entire approach was suitable for expanding markets. But during recession, the markets actually shrunk. And that is why the scientific management's limitations were exposed. And I've already explained this point also, that human beings, they perform individual motions poorly, actually. So his ability to judge, to measure, to balance. I mean, all that is something which is his, unique human ability. So if we are not able to make good use of that, it is a very poor engineering. But somehow most of the early exponents of scientific management, they were trained in the such sciences like mathematics or engineering. Taylor himself was a machinist uh, who started his career as a machinist. So their perspectives were focused on the shop floor and were not really so well versed with the context part. Next. So I think this is what I was trying to discuss with you. That's all. I think that's all. We will discuss later. So I hope I'm clear about the school, the scientific management school,
Yes.
and
Yes, sir.
Sir,
the limitations of this also. Yes.
Yes.
So, as you mentioned that again, the School of Scientific Management was basically a reflection of the society at that point of time, because people were migrating from rural areas to urban areas, and all they wanted was a source of income, a source of earning for themselves to survive. So, but again, eventually, didn't the system also act as act as had a major role in creating the income disparities more in the society? Like if we see it from a social point of view, from a societal point of view, because
Yes, there was problems related with that, and that is why that was the period when Marx and Marxist ideas became very prominent, and because they challenged, and there was exploitation in the system. Yes, there were some very good industrial leaders, but every their situation was not that humane, and especially the situation in the coal mines. It was horrible working conditions, and there were people who had not seen sun all through their life, because before the sun would come out, they would go into the mine and would come out only when the sun has set. So thus, yes, you are right that this led to some kind of revulsion against this profiteering which was indulged to, and how workers' basic working conditions were not focused on and compromised. So you'll come to that point. The human relations school actually is an outcome of this only, isn't it? So we'll talk about the second school later on. But your observation is very pertinent. There was exploitation in the system. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
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 Thank you, sir.